Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Forge. Clang, clang.
Clang, clang unto you.
Clay.
Tonight, you may notice that we are Nickless. And that is because Nick has been sick for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. He had to miss our Avatar Legends episode on Friday.
Aww.
He's hoping he'd feel better tonight, but he's not. So I'm a little worried about him. So send your healing prayers and vibes and whatever else you use to heal people.
I'll be
Whatever gods you pray to.
healing
Medicine.
saliva.
Maybe you pray to Ultron or
I
Vision.
pray to the god of modern medicine.
Who would that be?
Save Nick, Daddy Trump.
Oh no! No!
Nick would be like,
No.
don't even dare. Never sing
Don't,
solo.
that's not even funny, Johnny.
I repent for taking Nick's name in vain that way.
That's a
Tonight
good pivot.
Tonight we are not going to play Root, sadly, but we also want to make sure that Nick gets better. So that's the
Yeah.
important thing. Tonight we're going to do something a little different, and I'm going to hand it off to Johnny because he's in charge tonight.
You know, I feel like I've been in charge a lot recently, and I like it. Just kidding. It makes me incredibly nervous. No, but tonight we are going to be playing a game that I am working on developing. So, some of you know who are watching or listening that I recently released a game called The Lonely March Home. You can get it on itch.io. And that is a solo TTRPG. That one is based off of the Wretched and Alone game system, developed by Chris Bissett. Really, really cool. Check out all those games. Check out my game. But I'm working on a new game that is solo first. There's some plans on making it multiplayer as well. But this game is in early development, and I'm not basing it off of a system. I'm trying to build this completely from the ground up. And so tonight we're going to kind of stress test some of the systems that I've already built, do a little bit of development on some other systems if we've got time. But we're going to jump into it. So why don't I give you guys a little bit of the lay of the land on like what this game even is, the concept, the framing device, and let you guys in the audience, the other guys already know kind of what they need to play, but I'll let you guys in the audience know. So the framing device for this game is that you are the newly appointed sheriff of a western town beset by bandits and thugs and other mundane evils, as well as vampires, werewolves, and all manner of creatures of the night. So think like any classic western and then add in some of those monsters and creatures, and that's what we've got going on. And so you there's like various playbooks and classes and backgrounds and stuff, and so kind of no matter what your character came from, no matter who they were before, maybe they were a bartender, but now they are the newly appointed sheriff of this town that they are trying to save. And so in order to play this game, you need simple things like a pen and paper, and then you also need a tarot deck. So this game uses a tarot deck for kind of using that's the chance engine that we have for this game. It's a tarot deck rather than dice or other different mechanics. Any questions?
I win.
Oh, that's it. Steve won. Shoot, is it that easy?
I never win.
It actually-
because most of the games we can't win anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't planning on having a traditional win condition in the game, but there it is. Steve
like
wins.
he won.
There it is.
Amazing. No, I will say I think this will be interesting for like the listeners and the watchers. It's not going to be like your traditional actual play one shot. It'll be like we're not gonna. I don't know. I'm not gonna like super get into a character tonight.
Yeah.
We're mostly just gonna be like playing some things out, maybe talking it through and developing things rather than
Yeah.
playing a game and improving a story like we normally do.
Yeah. And I will say too, like when you play right now, this is like the beginning of a skeleton of a game. It's not even a completely formed skeleton,
Sure.
let alone a fully fleshed out game. But when you would play, the plan is that when you play a solo game, a solo campaign in this game, in order to RP, because you're alone, you would use something like either voice memos on your phone or journal, and you would write out your answers to the prompts or speak out your answers to the prompts, one of those two ways. And then when you're playing with more people, the game is meant to be entirely GM-less. There won't be a GM. You're still just responding to the prompts in the book, but then you would role play. But I don't have any of those prompts developed yet, so there wouldn't be any role play to happen necessarily anyway. Though there is some elements of character creation ready, so we will go through that because I think that'll be cool.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
No, you're in charge.
Yeah, so let's jump into character creation. There's actually, let me start off by saying too, there's going to be 4 phases of play. We won't get into all of them tonight, but the 4 phases of play are exploration, which is there's an element of filling out a map, a grid. As you explore, you discover new places, and then you'll have places that you can revisit and different things like that. So there's exploration as a phase. There's action as phase 2. So action really is responding to exploration. So when you find new places, you discover places, there's going to be prompts that are unfolding for you. And your action phase is responding to the prompts that unfold through your exploration phase. The next phase will be loot or consequences. So as a result of whatever your action phase looks like, you're either going to have things that you like, prizes, essentially loot that you find, or consequences that you have to suffer. And then finally, downtime, where you can buy, sell, trade, as well as recover from whatever might have happened to you during action and loot or consequences. So, building our characters, you guys have a character sheet that I shared with you. I'll go quickly through the elements of the character sheet. Your character has a few different stats that are determined in different ways. So you have your class, which is your character's primary occupation. This is what they did before receiving the sheriff's badge. So we have a few classes. We have bounty hunter, fur trapper, the doctor, medicine man, prospector, gunslinger, frontiersman, preacher, gambler, cowboy, and spiritualist. And then backgrounds, which is your character's history. And this is kind of the reason for coming out west. And so they might be an outlaw, a city slicker, a pioneer, a lawman, a veteran, a missionary, an orphan, a native, an explorer, or a wealthy person. And then every class has a set of 4 skills. These are actually, in this game, static attributes. So you'll have a value of -3 to +3, which will be used to modify different things throughout the game, but they're static. So once you select your playbook, you don't change these 4 stats, but those are marksman, which represents your ability to use weapons, which are usually mundane. There's occult, which is your ability to tap into magic and solve problems using magic. There's presence, which represents your ability to charm or intimidate people. And then cunning, which represents your ability to outsmart others or think your way through problems. And then you have stats that do move, which are vim and vigor. And so vim, think of that as like health, and vigor, you think of that like stamina. And so both of those, again, are fillable tracks that you'll have a minimum of 7 and you'll have a maximum of 15. But that will be a little bit more randomized. We'll get into that actually building. And then you have a limit of 3 items that your character can carry. If you have more, if you want to have another item and you already have 3, you have to trade one out, sort of thing. Typical items, combat utility, you can get into that another time. And then vulnerability or resistances. And so you and the enemies in the game have vulnerabilities and resistances where every vulnerability is either marksman or occult. And so you can be, if you're resistant to something, you half damage that you take from it. If you are vulnerable to it, you double the damage that you would take from it. So if you're vulnerable to occult damage and you're going up against a shaman and they use magic on you, you'll take double damage from whatever they do.
It's super effective.
Yeah.
This is just Pokemon.
Yes.
I got
Just Pokemon.
That's. I mean, talk about what I aspire to be. I aspire to be just Pokemon. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If only. Okay. So, do you guys want to do? There's one of 2 ways, and I haven't written this out yet, but one of 2 ways that you can build your character. I think the first way is more fun, which is totally random.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Cool. We'll do it that way.
Fine.
So, were you already like thinking of a character, Justin?
I was already looking at the preacher.
Oh, okay. You can be the preacher if you want.
No,
You can.
no.
Okay.
Justin won't let him. That's yeah.
To start, so with this game, with the tarot deck, I should mention, because now we're getting into where we're going to actually use the deck. You're going to split the tarot deck into 3 segments. So the tarot deck has naturally 2 segments. There's the naturally, as if it's naturally occurring. The tarot deck you find in nature has 2 segments. There's the major arcana and minor arcana. And so you split your deck into the major arcana and minor arcana. So your 22 major arcana cards go into one pile. And then you're going to take the minor arcana and you're going to split that again. So you're going to split that into numbered cards and face cards. So one pile that contains all of your face cards, which would be 4 cards in each suit: the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. And then your numbered cards, ace through 10, in all 4 suits in a last pile.
Everyone at home, follow along and divvy up your tarot card deck.
Yes, please do. So far, as far as what I've built, you'll spend the majority of your time drawing from the numbered cards. And so to choose your class, just draw a numbered card, and whatever number it is will correlate to whatever class you have.
9.
Doing it.
So I drew a 4.
And do we need to are we ignoring the like wands or cups or?
Yes, you don't need to worry about the suit right now, just the number.
Okay.
Oh, so I drew a 9. So cowboy.
Yep. So you'd be the cowboy. So go ahead, and if you're using the digital version of the playbook, go ahead and type it. If you're writing it by hand, write it out. You're the cowboy, and so your stat line will be determined by what it says underneath the cowboy. So your skill points, you'll have a +1 to marksman, a -1 to occult, a +1 to presence, and a +2 to cunning. And then record somewhere to the side for now, because we'll come back to this. Your vim and vigor, your vim will be +2 and your vigor will be +1, but those are not your final amounts.
All right, I got a 5.
Amazing.
And that would make me a veteran, I suppose. Oh wait, no, I'm looking at background. Sorry.
You're looking at background. Yeah.
I would be a gunslinger. That makes me sound cool. Master of quick draws and precision shooting. Very well.
Yeah, so you're gonna get a +3 to marksman, a -2 to occult, and a +1 each to presence and cunning. You also get a -1 to vim and a +2 to vigor. Oh, and I forgot to mention your resistance, Danny. Steve, your character will have a resistance to marksman damage, and
Nice.
Danny, you'll get a resistance to marksman as well.
Nice.
I also have resistance marksman because I rolled a 6.
Nice, the frontiersman.
Frontiersman.
So you got a +1 to marksman, a +0 to occult, a -2 to presence, a +3 to cunning, and a +3 each to vim and vigor.
What did you roll, Johnny?
I got a 4. So I got the prospector.
We're very unoccultish.
Yeah, there are actually relatively few occult
sense.
Like in life.
playbooks. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
the part of my intention with that was to make it so that the occult challenges that come up as you progress through the game force you to get creative, and they're going to be challenging because, like in real life, if you moved out west just seeking, gold or an escape from whatever was out east, and you found vampires, you'd have some trouble figuring that out too.
Speak for yourself.
I guess. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Speak for
Um,
yourself.
Yeah, but so my character will get a +0 to marksman, a -1 to occult, +2 each to presence and cunning, no boost to vim, and a +1 to vigor, and a marksman resistance as well. All right. So now that we have that recorded, before we move on to backgrounds, we'll figure out what our final vim and vigor are going to be. So you're going to draw 2 more numbered cards. The first one that you draw, you're going to add to whatever you're going to add that to. Oh, sorry. We do need to do one more. We do need to do backgrounds before we do this part. That's my bad.
Okay.
I totally forgot about an element of things. So, backgrounds. So draw 1 more card and determine your background. The thing I forgot about is that throughout the game, there is a rule where at any point that you're drawing cards, and it's going to be important with Vim and Vigor because you might want to do it, you have coin, which is another expendable resource in the game, and you can spend 1 coin per card to draw additional cards to add to whatever you're drawing. So let's say that you drew a 1 when you're trying to determine your Vim. You might want to buy another card when you're doing that.
Cool. For my second draw, I have a 2.
So you're City Slicker. So you get 4 for your starting coin. And your starting item, which is a marksman item, which is important to note, you can get a pistol, which is a +2 damage. So you'll record in your inventory your items that you have a pistol that's marksman and 2 damage.
I drew a
That's
10.
Derringer or Derringer?
Derringer.
Derringer. That sounds
Durango.
cooler.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
You drew a 10, Danny?
Yeah.
So that means that you have a wealthy background. So you start with 5 coin,
Wealthy
And-
cowboy.
a custom revolver, and that's marksman damage and +4 for your damage.
I rolled 3, so pioneer.
Nice. So you start with 1 coin, and you get a hunting rifle, marksman, and +4 damage.
But in the fiction, Justin, you can say that you were doing preaching stuff for a while if you want to feel like a preacher.
I don't know. I am a pioneer. I don't know who you're talking about. That's not my character.
I don't know what you're on about, boy.
I don't know what you're on about.
I didn't see no go around that ridge.
All right. So now you guys are going to draw 2 more numbered cards. You're going to draw 2 more cards. 2 more numbered cards. The first one that you draw is going to be your Vim. So you're going to add your class's Vim to whatever you draw. And I didn't draw for my background.
Ooh.
Yeah, we need your background.
Oh, I also got City Slicker.
2. So I should be drawing 2 cards.
Yes.
Yes. 2 and 3.
Okay.
Ooh. I drew a 9 and an 8. That's why I'm.
Ooh, nice.
Drawing a 2 and 3 brings my Vim and Vigor to the same value.
So now this is where you could use your coin to buy additional draws to add to that
on
number.
top?
On top.
Oh.
Up to them. So but one thing that's worth noting too is that your Vim and Vigor have a minimum of 7. So I forgot to mention that. I did mention that earlier, but I forgot to mention that again. It's a minimum of 7. So you're adding whatever your class gives you plus whatever you drew to 7 as a baseline.
Okay. And if I were
Up to
to
15.
If I were to use coin to buy an additional draw, would I keep what I already drew out of the deck, or does
Yes.
it really matter? Should I shuffle them back and keep them?
No,
out?
you would add it. You would add it to your initial draw.
Okay. I did do that because I think it would make sense for Cowboy's Vigor to be a little higher. You know, I think he'd
Mm-hmm.
have some endurance.
Yeah.
Nice. I drew a coin. I spent a coin, drew a card, and got a 9.
Nice. So you're gonna be starting with 15 Vigor then, which is max.
So if I'm doing this right, I've got base 7 plus the 9 that I pulled for Vim, minus 1 because of my cowboy gunslinger traits.
Yep.
Or not cowboy, sorry, that's Danny. My gunslinger something or other trait.
Mm-hmm.
And that puts me at 15, and that's within the okay range. And so I'm 15 for them.
So you max out at 15. So because the 7 plus the 9 puts you above 15 already, that minus 1 is coming off of the 15.
Ah, so I would get booted down to 15, and then I take off the minus 1. So I'm at
Right.
14.
Right.
Oh, so you start at 7. You don't start at.
Yeah, you start at 7 because it's a minimum of 7.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Then
that's your base.
I'm 15 for both. Then
Nice. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
11 for Vim and 15 for Vigor.
at 9 for each.
Oh.
So what I would do if I were you guys, if you're not, are any of you using the digital sheet that I gave you guys?
no.
Or
Yes.
the printed out or anything? So what I would do for the Vim and Vigor for the circles that are there is just like fill in black for
That's what I'm
whatever.
doing, yeah.
Okay, yeah. and then you can record your skill points in those circles as well.
Okay, I ended up with 14 Vim and 15 Vigor, so also
Nice.
fairly robust and lucky.
Yeah, I think my character is far and away the weakest of us. Cool. Okay, so what we would do is you would, on the grid, starting a normal game, you would select one of the tiles along the bottom of the page, and that's where your hometown is. So, I mean, there's actually, let me ask you guys what you think is more interesting, because there's one of two ways we could do it, and this part is not written yet, so we can decide here. Should I have you guys decide, just pick a spot on the bottom of the grid, and that's where the town that you're the sheriff of is, or we could do another draw where you would draw 2 cards and kind of use that to count along the grid and pick a random spot where does that make sense? So like, say I drew a 4, so I'd count 4 from the left, and then I would draw another card and I count 1. So I would, if I'm going from the top left, my home base would actually end up being the 4th in at the top row.
Yeah, I mean, I think either one is fun, but if I'm understanding correctly, and just for listeners as well, like, I'm looking at like a blank hexagonal grid, but you have like a meaningful version of that grid where each hex corresponds to something already?
Nope.
No? Oh, okay, cool.
No, you start with a blank grid intentionally.
Question.
You're gonna fill that in. You're gonna discover that. So each game that will end up being different.
Oh, cool.
Vibe tone wise, is the vibe tone like your? Why are you laughing at me?
Because you couldn't choose between the word vibe and tone, so you just used them both together twice.
I just created a new.
Vibe tone wise is like the vibe tone vibing.
listeners, let's make this a thing. You start using vibe
Yes,
tone in your
vibe
day-to-day
tone.
life. Vibe tone.
It transcends both vibe and tone.
It's neither just vibe nor tone. It is both vibe.
So if I'm reading your vibe tone correctly,
Yeah. I'm tired. Yes, you're reading my vibe tone correctly. Are we like not struggling, but like, are we beset on all sides by creatures and bandits? Are we like, is the game, are our characters struggling to make it like a safe place for themselves in the Wild West, or is it something where they are heroic, they are blazing a trail in the West and making a safe place? Because I feel like if they're heroic, start on the bottom, because then you have nowhere to explore but the unexplored.
Mm-hmm.
But if the tone of the game is supposed to be you're surrounded on all sides and you still have to find a way to keep your people safe, then putting it in a random place fits that better.
Yeah. So that's a hard question to answer for one reason, because my intention, and this is another piece of the system that's not built yet, is for that itself to be random. I am planning on having something where at the beginning of the game you draw a card to essentially determine you'll draw a couple of cards, one that will determine sort of your difficulty level and one that will determine kind of what your goals are as the sheriff of this town.
Okay.
So there's a vibe tone generator built into the
vibe
game.
tone generator. I mean, feel free to trademark that too for what you call it in your game.
Love it.
I'm happy to lend that to you.
Appreciate that. I'll make sure I give you written credit.
Thank you. That's all I want.
All I ever want is written
I guess-
credit.
I guess for this, for our purposes for this particular session, why don't we say, just for ease, put your town just in the middle of the map.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. It's right there.
We'll split the difference. Instead of going random, but not on the bottom, just right in the middle. Because what the explore phase will look like, and there are elements of this, again, just keep reminding people, this is the skeleton of a game. It is not fully fleshed out yet. But this is the beginnings of the skeleton of a game. But as of right now, my intention is for your explore phase to start by you drawing a numbered card. And that numbered card, you will use that to determine how many spaces you move away from your home base, but you get to choose the direction. So let's say, so we're in the middle, and I drew an 8. And so I can pick any direction, and I just move 8 squares away from. Justin deleted an image. I move. No problem. But you move 8 spaces from your town in any direction. It could be even a multiplicity. Like you can turn it back around and end up right back next to your town. But you're moving 8 spaces away from your town when you draw that 8. And then you would draw a face card to determine the terrain. Like what kind of place you just went to.
Cool.
That's whenever we explore.
That's whenever you explore.
Okay.
I like exploring.
So
Me too.
I don't have them yet, but the book will also include icons that will be hopefully relatively simple for people to draw. But it would be, so let's say that you draw your 8, you move 8 spaces away, you draw a card, a face card. So I drew the Knight of Cups. And so that would represent, let's say, a canyon. And so now you've traveled, like for whatever reason, you've traveled to a canyon. And one of the things that I'm trying to figure out right now is, do I want to have each face? I'm debating a little bit between having each face card individually represent a completely separate location. So 16 possible location types, or paring that down a little bit and having 4 location types, but then micro adjustments on those locations. So let's say that it's the Knight of Cups, and so each face card's name, so like the Knight, the Page, Queen, the King, represents one of 4 possible types of locations that you end up. And then the suit determines what kind of thing is happening when you
Like
get
a 4x4 table with each corresponding to the
Yes.
intersection of a Y and X factor. Yeah.
Exactly. So like the Knight of Cups, let's say that because it's a knight, I go to a canyon. Because it's the suit cups, it's a supernatural threat.
Yeah. The canyon with glowing penguins, for example.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that Johnny would yes and my penguins. Or at least yes them.
And so I will say too, for the audience, exploration is one of the things that I'm struggling the most right now with developing. And so this is the most up in the air piece. And we don't have to necessarily drill all the way down on this. We will get to combat, which is more fleshed out. And I'm excited to have you guys like
Sure.
test that out. But
Yeah. I mean, at this stage. Yeah, Justin, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I personally like the second option more, where you've got the grid, like 4 locations and 4 like
Yeah.
types of things that can happen. I think you would struggle to come up with 16 meaningful different locations.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point. Making systems is really interesting.
yeah,
For like all these things and making sure that they, interact in a cool way. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's a cool
So-
challenge, game design.
Yeah. One of the other elements of the exploration piece is that there needs to, once you find the location, there need to be potential encounters, whether those be RP encounters or combat encounters. And so, I think I like the 4x4 grid thing the best as well. That idea of the face of the card determines the location, the suit determines the circumstance, sort of thing. But then I'm debating a little bit on how many different potential circumstances to have at each location. So like because like I could have it be again a thing where it's like use the number cards and it's 1 through 10 possible encounters, and maybe the suit plays into it, maybe it doesn't. Or I could have it be, I could have it be that you use the Major Arcana, and then you have 22 possible encounters at every location. But one of the things that becomes a problem again, that it just compounding issues, is that if we're doing a system where there's 4 location types and 4 circumstance types, and then you have various combinations that show up depending on which combination of location and circumstance you drew. Under each of those, in each location, there still needs to be however many encounters that can be adjusted just mentally according to the circumstance type.
Could you not just group creatures by, like, have a different table for each creature type? I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, these are occult creatures. These are bandits. These are animals.
Yeah.
This is your mother-in-law.
So I think the thing that ends up happening there, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, it's just the continued complication, is that I think doing that, I end up essentially it is effectively the same thing as having a different location for each individual face card.
I see what you're saying.
Which honestly, like, eventually that might end up being the place that, like, I land, like, that being what it has to be.
Ooh.
Here's my take on it. I think you can probably come up with creatures, like things to fight, more easily than locations. And, like, let's say this is just a random example off the top of my head, but, like, if you roll a town as your location, but there's like a supernatural threat or an occult threat, like, there's still I don't know how you're planning to do, like, how the player thinks about what that encounter means, but, like, there's still lots of different ways that you could say, like, all right, what does that mean? Is the town abandoned? Is it not abandoned? Are they beset by ghosts? Are they, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I think there's still a lot of play that the player can play around with. I used to play way too many times in that sentence.
That's fine.
As long as there's like a wherever it comes into play, I don't know if this is correct, but like a prompt, you have that freedom for like the character, the player input to kind of resolve the burden of like systematizing 3 layers of intersecting tables that generate something that still feels coherent in all possible combinations or something like that. Like, it could just be like, here's the scene and something wrong happens of this kind. What is it? Or, if you have to add too much mechanical, then I don't know. But
well, and that's one of the things too, that, like, I want to try to mitigate the number of tables that are at play versus having just direct I know I have the Page of Cups and I have prompt 9, so I just go to the page representing the Page of Cups for that location, whatever that location and circumstance is, and then I look down the page to number 9, and at 9 it tells me you encounter XYZ NPC. They say ABC to you, and then you determine this thing, or maybe you draw a card and add your presence to it in order to determine how that NPC responds to you.
Your mother-in-law asks for your help with a local glowing penguin infestation in the canyon.
Exactly. But it's like a thing of like, I'm trying to avoid too many tables because I don't want players to feel like they have to figure out everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what were you about to say, Danny?
Sorry, no, I just saw Steve change his name to what it is now.
Actually, I think someone else changed my name to Steve as the guy watching Danny be Justin, because you are Danny as Justin, and Justin is Justin as himself. Johnny seems to have been left unscathed in this encounter. But who can say what was rolled or what tables were used?
But what I was gonna say, Johnny, was are you? Sorry, I got kind of lost in the like location. Encounter exploration.
that's
Aren't
okay.
we all? Aren't we all?
Are you tr-
This is the sauce.
Are you trying
that we're
to?
in.
Yeah. Are you trying to stray away from like having there be a table and like, oh, which location am I about to enter, and more just like, oh, which encounter am I gonna run into in this house?
Well, so I kind of want to avoid both a little bit. Like I want it instead of. So the best example I have, and this again ends up being a part of the problem, is that you are familiar, I know, Danny, with Miru, and so I think Miru, the way that they do it is really elegant, where when you go to a specific location type, you just go to the pages dedicated to that location, and then underneath are the potential options that you can roll for that location, and it's just laid out right there for you very directly.
Sometimes
So
there's
you're
even
just
a
going
map,
through a
like
nice
a tiny
little
little
book?
map there as well.
Yeah, exactly. And so what was that, Steve?
So you're just going through like a nice little booklet in that case.
Yeah.
I like
And so
it.
like
I like it.
you might go back and forth on pages, but you're not constantly looking at like grids of options and trying to figure out.
Yeah.
I must calculate my future.
I think if you could come up with meaningful locations for every single hex, essentially, then yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think because I don't think every hex doesn't have to be unique. But like the card options would. So like it's not like you would have to. If it's a 10 by 10 grid, you don't have to have 100 different locations you can go to.
Sure.
If I'm going to continue using the face cards, it would still just be 16 locations if we're using every face and just you're just doing a straight draw.
So I guess then my question would be like, in a run, would you expect players to draw more than 16? Go to 16 more than 16 locations?
I think it depends, but like not necessarily. I think it depends on what sort of goals we lay out for the players and what sort of what an end game looks like, and in some ways how chance kind of shakes out for that player.
Yeah, I mean, so that would be my only concern, is if there's only 16 locations, then there's only 16 locations, and the chances of you seeing, you could run into the same location both times.
Yeah, but I will say, like, I mean, for Miru, for instance, there's only 6 possible places you can go, and each of those places only has like 6 to 8 things that can happen.
Okay.
And in probably 10 playthroughs of Miru, I still haven't had a game feel like I'm rehashing things over and over.
Sure.
And I feel like with this game too, the different classes and backgrounds as well already adds an extra layer of like difference per playthroughs on top of that as well.
It betrays my what's the word I'm looking for?
Vibe tone.
It betrays my vibe tone of not playing. I don't play a ton of solo RPGs, so that's a part of the hobby that I'm not super familiar with.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
This is new for all of us to a degree. I mean, for me and you, it sounds like it's super new, Justin. I don't know how much Danny plays solo RPGs.
I played Miru.
I'm aware of solo RPGs, and I've read through some of them. I get to playing them, and I get bored.
That's fair.
And I don't come back to them. I want to like solo RPGs. It's a cool way to play RPGs. It's like the mechanics of it, I'm not as comfortable working around.
Yeah, and so it's like, I think too, like this game is, even though I'm thinking of it as solo first, there's and I recognize the distinction here is vague and nebulous, but I'm thinking of this more as a GM-less game versus a solo game. And I don't know if you're more familiar with GM-less games in general, but
A little bit more.
like things like Rune Cairn and
Yeah.
things like that. But I think I can pretty, like, I just did a quick sketch list, and I came up with 10 unique locations. And I'm sure I could come up with 6 more. Like I came up with like Ghost Town, Canyon, General Town, City. No idea what Mountain.
What did I write there?
Desert, casino, riverboat, saloon, church, like
Sure.
no,
Yeah.
lots of different things that can pop up. And
That's fun.
And just random
That's fun.
thought too, you could do really cool things with the classes and backgrounds, and depending on the encounter you get at the location, they might react to you different depending on your
Oh,
background or
that'd be
depending on your
fun.
class.
Like, see if there's a
Like,
trigger
if you're
for class.
if you're a
Yeah,
preacher who
that's
walks
cool.
into a saloon, they'd react to you a lot differently if you were like,
yeah,
say,
I
like,
do
you're going
intend to
interesting.
have a handful of there's only so much of that I can do in a GMless system without it being
Yeah.
overly bloated. But there
Yeah.
are some things where like I'm thinking about things like where if I have if I have a church as a location and you're in an encounter in church, specifically if it's an occult centered encounter, then I want to like try and find some way to give a preacher who might find themselves in a church facing off with a vampire some level of a little bit of a advantage there.
Yeah.
Because God's on his side.
Because I know all
Exactly.
the nooks and crannies of the church.
Or like a prospector in a mine against a Wendigo, and then
God's on his side.
Yeah.
Yeah, God's on his side too.
But yeah, so I mean, like I said, exploration is super chaotic right now, but I don't want to like stay in the weeds on exploration. If you guys think of anything, let me know, because I would welcome input and help. Danny, and anyway, but let's jump into combat. Do you guys want to check out combat a little bit?
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is it so?
We
do we
can-
not even have the bones to make up an exploration roll?
I haven't built anything really, but I mean, if we want, we can kind of like muddle our way through it a little bit, and I can try and build something on the fly that would feel relatively
Whatever you like. If it
Like,
adds
let's-
any texture or context to picturing the
that
combat
would help,
encounter. Even
Yeah,
if it's
I mean, let's,
artificially like, let's just choose 3 aspects of what this might be, and
Yeah.
Just open up Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare and just tell us what you're going through in there, and then we'll replay it in your game.
Well, one thing I do know I want to do with exploration is, and this is going to feed into the solo first, but up to 4 players element of the game, is that when you're exploring, my intention is when you're playing solo, you're exploring. Let's say that you draw. Let's just keep going back to the page. Let's say the Page of Cups is the ghost town. And so now you're in the ghost town, and you need to draw events to find out what events happen. And so let's say that there's just a standard of 10 events, just for the sake of argument right now. And so you're going to draw numbered cards for your events. If you're playing solo, you're going to draw 2 numbered cards. So I just drew the 2 and the 8. And so I would go to whatever encounter is labeled 2 and whatever encounter is labeled 8. And I would resolve both of those before I moved on out of the exploration phase. And this is where exploration and action kind of intertwine with one another. Like, now that I know where I am, the exploration phase is technically over, and I'm using the prompts within the place that I'm at to determine my action phase. And so you would do 2 cards for your once you have the location. One of the things I want to do for additional players is that you're starting with that base of 2, but then you're going to draw an additional card for an additional encounter for each player beyond the first. So if you're playing with 2 people, you're going to draw 3 cards when you reach a destination. If you're playing with 4, it's going to be
interesting. Yeah,
5
that's
cards.
fun. Yeah,
And so
that's cool.
yeah, more threats, or not necessarily. It's not all necessarily threatening. Sometimes it's even going to be good things that you encounter. But it just means that there's more to do when there's more people.
I think
Yeah.
good things are threatening.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of threats.
That's yeah. Thank you for your candid perspective on life.
So why don't we? Do you guys want to treat it like we're playing multiplayer, or like you're each playing solo?
If it feels too complex to go multiplayer, I'm fine to just zoom in on one person. Like if we like poke Justin or Danny and like have them bravely march forward through exploration and just like give an example.
Yeah, is one of you guys feeling particularly brave?
Poke me, please.
Send Danny.
Okay.
Please poke me.
Please poke me.
Okay. So yeah, Danny, go ahead and
You have
draw
been poked.
a card.
From
Draw
the
a
base
base
cards?
card. Yeah.
Yay. Knight of Cups.
Okay, so I'm just using my own deck to kind of arbitrarily decide what that is right now. There's a system to it in my head, but it's neither here nor there. So you are in a city. So actually, let's back up and draw a number card to determine how far away from your settlement, from your town, the city is.
Shuffle.
No, right next door.
Ooh, the
possible.
ace.
Ace? So it is one space away.
It's just right next door.
So you're only traveling one space,
And
and
can just, in any direction it can be.
in any direction. And so another thing too, that is just kind of like a wrinkle to make things complex and nuanced in the game. I was thinking, toying around with the exploration phase, also having a thing where whatever you draw, so you drew an ace, so it's only one. But in order to travel that one space, you also need to spend one vigor.
And so to mark off vigor, do I like get rid of that pip, or should I like temporarily get rid of it?
What I would do if you had printed the sheet out and you were doing it with a pencil, I would just do a pencil check mark in the space for the vigor, and then erase it whenever you recover.
I see. I have a solution.
Perfect. Okay, so then, so you've drawn a city, an icon for a city on the space next to your town, and now and one thing too, once all of the spaces around your town are filled, and you draw an ace, you're just going to go one from whatever space is not filled. Does that make sense? So you're gonna count from the closest filled space.
You're always going to an unexplored hex.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool.
There will be things I'm toying around with mentally for once all of it's filled, but that's for another time. But anyways, so you go to the city. You now what you would do is you draw one of the numbered cards again.
All right, and I keep whatever I've already drawn out. Or
You can, or you can shuffle it back in. It doesn't really matter.
okay. 2. Oh. 2.
12? 2? I was like, 12's not a numbered card.
No, 2. I was gonna say 2 of cups, I think, but there's like a snake and like a winged lion coming out of their cups. Man, it's crazy. But the 2.
They got
Dude,
snakes
wild
on
with these
lions on
cups.
cups, man. It's like
Cups are out of
crazy.
control.
When you get to
crazy, man.
when you get to the town, there are a bunch of lions coming out of all of the villagers' cups.
They're so nonchalant about it.
Everyone's like,
Cups
acting
are
this
full of
is a normal
stuff
day.
that's not liquid.
These cups are full of stuff.
There's so much stuff in these cups. Anyway, so yeah, it's a 2. So I mean, let's just say, because I want to get to it, let's say that's a combat encounter. So you drew a 2, and so you are in the city and you come across a group of bandits in the city. And so what you would do, and actually this would be a thing that would work for it in combat in this game, will always be individual. So everyone will be fighting as if they're playing alone when you're in combat, even if you're playing multiplayer. But let me pull up my combat rules here. So
Just like in life.
So bandits, let me actually make a stat line here so that I can do this for you. So you're facing off with bandits.
The worst, just the worst.
You know, they just never go away. They're always
They never
part of
go away.
everything, bugging us, being
They're
bandity,
always banditing.
Okay. So
inadvertently advertising Band-Aid. It's the worst.
Ugh.
So, like I mentioned before, you have up to
Hey,
three
Big Pharma.
three items that you could have, and items in this game will always have either combat or recovery utility. Your starting item you got from your I can't remember class or background, but you have a starting item,
Yeah.
which is the only item that you have at the moment. So,
revolver.
yep. So that is a marksman item. So you're going to choose at the start of combat, you choose an approach based on one of your weapons, and so you obviously don't have a choice besides marksman for this. So you're always going to choose between marksman or occult. Steve has a bread knife, it looks like, and so he's choosing a marksman
So
as his.
it's a good thing you're not fighting bread, because
And so yeah, you have a marksman approach, and your opponent also has a marksman approach. And I think you are resistant to marksman damage, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to take half damage from any damage that's dealt to you in this encounter. And so what you're going to do is you're going to draw a numbered card and add your marksman or your occult to it. So in this case, marksman, with the appropriate stat.
I'm adding my
You're adding your marksman skill.
marksman too. Okay. So I'm ignoring the damage listed under the item for now, right?
Correct.
All right. So I drew a whoo. It's an 8.
An 8
Yeah,
total?
I see 8 sticks. Yeah. Oh no, 9 total.
9 total.
That's doing it.
Okay, and so now you're gonna draw another numbered card, and you're gonna add 3 to it, whatever it is.
Ooh. 10.
10.
So 13 total.
So the bandits that you're facing off against beat your 9 with their 13, so they won that particular face off. So you're gonna take 4 damage, half down to 2 because you're resistant to marksman damage.
Nice.
And so that would be against your Vim.
Against my Vim.
Yep. And
Those are
so
really nice, those bandits. is what I gotta say.
So the highest you get a card for yourself, you add your appropriate attack stat, you get a card for them, you add it for your enemies in the game. Their stats are always going to be listed just right there for you when you're looking at the page, but you're going to add their stat, and then the highest result is the one that deals damage. So if you had gotten higher, you would have dealt your weapons damage to them. And damage always goes against the Vim track. Now, at any point during the game or during the combat, you can spend, as a player, you can spend vigor at a rate of 1 per round of combat to flee. So if you're on the 3rd round of combat and you're starting to realize I'm running
the
out of
longer
Vim,
you go,
then you can
the more
spend 3
it'll be.
vigor to run away. And if at any point you play you draw an ace when you're drawing for the enemy's attack, then the enemy automatically flees.
nice.
Cool.
If you draw an ace as the player, then you can hold on to that ace and save it to spend to flee without spending vigor at any time
all.
during your excursion.
That's cool.
Get out a
Okay.
battle free card.
And the ace takes place of any amount of vigor spent. So
Correct.
if you're in the 4th round, you just need to spend 1 ace card and you can flee.
Exactly. And when this combat ends, if you have an ace, you can hold on to it until you have finished this excursion and you go back to town.
Oh, nice.
And so you gonna say something, Justin?
I was gonna say, can we like fast forward and just say that Danny won, so we can see like what happens after the action?
Yeah,
and-
absolutely. Yeah, so let's say you won. Let's say for the sake of argument that you only have 2 Vim remaining.
Yeah.
And so you've gotten all but 2 of your health taken away. So the next phase would be and let's say like there was also you had an encounter that was a non-combat encounter. while you were in the city. And so sometimes those encounters will be entirely RP. Sometimes those might have some sort of reward for you. And depending on a couple of factors that I'm still working out, a lot of the non-combat encounters will give you like some sort of like a clue or a boon or something that you're looking for to complete whatever adventure you're on.
Sure.
But so let's say that you have those 2 encounters, and you've got all but 2 of your Vim is gone. And so now you go into loot or consequences. So this one's going to be a table that I don't have made right now. But there will be times where an encounter will tell you to go that you'll receive XYZ consequence. And then when you're done going through your action phase and you're doing loot or consequences, any encounters will tell you what loot and what consequences you're going to get for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then you'll use this opportunity to like resolve that. It's going to be pretty simple. It's not like a complicated step or phase of play. And then you're going to have some downtime. So downtime is always like you finished your excursion, you've returned to town, things are calming down for you. You have a moment. There'll be like a store that you can always go to and buy or sell or trade things, like items that you might find in your loot phase. Will have coin values that you can trade them in for if you don't want to keep that item, or things like that. And so you'll have a buy, sell, trade opportunity. Maybe you end up coming back from an excursion and realizing like I actually need a different weapon or an occult weapon or something like that, and I don't have one. So you'll do that. And then recovery. And so this is the next thing where you would actually do something. So you're going to spend 1 coin to recover per draw from the deck. Like I mentioned before, you can always anytime you're drawing from the deck, you can pay a coin to get an additional card or to do
that is also thing. Just like in real life.
Yep. And so you can spend 1 coin per draw from the numbered deck, and then you're going to use the following formula to restore your Vim, to get your Vim back. So recovery equals the number on the card divided by 2 rounded up.
Oh, it's like you're calculating ability scores in D&D.
Essentially, yeah. Yeah, so let's say if you drew a 6, then you would get 3, you'd recover 3.
So I drew a 9, so I recover 5?
Yep.
Nice.
And then if you want to recover more, you can spend a coin to draw again.
You know, a cowboy who I've named Adrian Audacious is fine where it's at.
I was gonna say I need a name so I can cheer for this guy.
And then there's
the bandit
also,
survivor Adrian Audacious.
during somewhere in between the loot and consequences or recovery, I'm still trying to figure out building out something with a slightly different but similar formula to recover your vigor as well. But I haven't figured that out yet.
And you just roll recover whenever you return back to town.
Yes, you only roll unless you have a special item. You can get items that let you recover, but unless you have an item, you only recover when you're back in town. I need to get a quick bio real quick. I'll be right back. I know I'm like leading this thing, but I really gotta go.
Honestly, I am feeling him right now because every time, I think I've told Justin this, almost every time GM Scars of Disorder, there are some moments typically close to the end where I'm like, I really gotta go.
That was like the first question Danny had for me. He's like, how do you GM for that long and not have
ultimate GM advice forum? It's like everyone's just like, oh yeah, you just need a porta potty like under you at all times. You just gotta.
I'm just peeing. Steve, did you ever do that when you were GMing?
Yeah, just every session, mobile potty. Yeah.
No. Did you ever have an episode where you're like, we gotta end this right now? Like I have to go.
No, it didn't happen.
I remember.
It got pretty urgent. Like pretty uncomfortable. Probably affected my voicings of characters or something. We're like, right? It's like everything's like slowly pitching up. Gotta go.
The only time that it's been like really bad, I remember that right out of college, I was doing tech support for like a financial planning company, and we were doing phone tech support. So like financial advisors would call in, and eventually you do it enough, you like get the same like questions over and over again, so you can answer them pretty quickly, and then every now and then you'll just get a random question. And this one person called in and just kept asking question after question after question. It was a 3-hour call.
Oh, wow.
And I had to go to the restroom at the start of that call.
No.
And so I just had to like sit there for 3 hours and hold it. And I got so bad, I was literally pacing the like cubicles at the end, trying to like answer this person's question and just hoping they would end the call so that I could go to the restroom.
Man, aren't you allowed to be human? Is it like it was like solely against protocol? So it'd be like, I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm about to explode.
There wasn't. I don't know how to say that professionally. I probably could have.
We have no script for this. You're supposed to be a
put you on
robot.
hold for a moment to do some research.
They gotta teach you the graceful dismount.
Yeah.
The graceful dismount.
When I worked at in a call center, I won't say what company, but when I worked in a call center, there was a guy who bought a wireless headset for his setup with an intentionally long range, and he would frequently go to the bathroom while on a call.
I was on a wireless headset. I could have gone. I think the professional in me was like, I can't go to the restroom while I'm talking to someone else on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a risk for sure.
He did have a couple of occurrences that had him on the edge of getting fired, because on more than one occasion a customer will go, "Are you in a bathroom or something?"
Yeah, see, and that's exactly why I wouldn't do that.
I'd be horrified. This call is
especially
being
too, 'cause,
recorded for bathroom insurance purposes.
Like, if this wasn't like a call center, this wasn't like a B2C call center, this is like a B2B call center, you know what I mean? So like, I'm not just talking to like any schmo. Like, these are like financial planners who have bought our product and expect support. So like, I can't go to the restroom while I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Speaking of restrooms, I think I just had an epiphany for what at least a session level goal, if not like a full goal for the game would be, is like
build an outhouse.
Yes. No, I'm going to figure out like throughout different encounters in the game, or maybe through various methodologies in the loot or consequences phase, or some combination of the two. Your goal will be to collect a certain number of relics to protect your town from
that's fun.
creatures of the night. And I'm going to sort out a, which completely undeveloped because I just had this idea in the bathroom, a system wherein there will be a fifth phase that is essentially like the faction game in Blades in the Dark, where the bandits or creatures or whatever are getting an opportunity to fill out the map. And if they reach your town before you get the number of relics, you lose.
It's kind of like in Trophy Gold, you got to collect enough coin to get back to town, or else they hang you.
Yeah.
The gallows.
Oh my gosh. Trophy. That's, by the way, what bathrooms are for. They're not just for going to the bathroom. It's for epiphanies. Yeah. Like,
that's the
definitely
only reason I shower.
I was gonna say same as showers.
You guys are the worst.
Anytime I'm stuck on a problem, I'm like, I'm gonna hop in the shower.
Yep.
Ever since Johnny, I forget if we were on air or if it was just before we went on air, but ever since Johnny asked me, he's like, Steve, as a white guy, do you wash your legs?
Yeah, he did.
And I was like, I mean, not often. He's like, this is supporting my theory. And it's like, ever since then, I have been more aware of that, and I have washed my legs more often. Just saying.
Here's the thing though. Here's where really the rubber really hits the road. Do you pee in the shower?
Occasionally.
If you pee in the shower and don't actively wash your legs, you're gross.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So very funny. On this topic, I have a dermatologist now because I have a ton
Well,
of skin
freaking good
issues
for
all of
you.
a sudden randomly.
You're in the bottom. What is it called?
No,
Not bottom. You're in like the extreme minority of Americans for having access to anything, right?
I know it took months, but yeah, I was able to see her, and my skin just started falling off all of a sudden, and
Leprosy.
and they were like, they were like, when you shower, like, how do you clean yourself? I was like, I wash like everything, like I scrub. They're like, all right, stop that. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I was
Your
like,
skin
gross.
is, man.
Yeah. I mean, it is a thing. Like, there was a thing I was reading recently. Actually, I can't remember if I was reading it or if it was a TikTok. It was one of the two. But a thing I found somewhere where they were saying like the majority of people in Western countries shower too often. Like
You can dry your skin
it's
out
actually,
and
not good
damage
for your
it.
skin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Never
Okay.
mind. Never mind.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. We're gonna let that one go, I guess.
I would just say I remember when he went to Gen Con and there was like a Reddit post, it's like a PSA, being like, all right, always make sure you shower 2 times a day at least.
Whoa.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
it's like
for
this-
different reasons.
That's for different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? It's the same sort of thing though, like with like obviously like you brush your teeth every day, hopefully twice a day. But if you use like an alcohol or fluoride based mouthwash every time you brush your teeth,
Yeah.
you're gonna kill the good bacteria and things that are in your mouth
Mhm.
that help you break down food and prevent your breath from stinking naturally and things like that.
It's
Gotta
like,
find the balance.
Santiago in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. She was killing her teeth. She found out.
Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah,
She would. She freaking would.
brushing her teeth to nothing.
I must brush more.
But yeah, I mean, so going back to the game real quick, that's kind of what I've got so far. It's not a lot. It's still like very
cool,
much a
though.
work in progress, but
I
what you
love
got
that you're
done.
doing it.
I'm very excited for it.
thanks.
You are the only reason that I'll probably ever try a solo RPG
It's true.
or a GM list, possibly, but it depends on.
It could be
Yeah.
fun to play the game on air when it's released.
Sure.
It could.
This game, unlike my last one, I have every intention of doing like an actual like full print run of. And once I do that, check your mailboxes, fellas. I'm gonna.
Hey. You know, that's probably one of the most exciting things that could possibly reach my mailbox.
I live off the grid now, so I'll come to you.
Okay.
I live on the grid,
a location.
and I'm only 1 hex away from my home base. So
Nice. I will a little inside baseball here. I mean, it's really nothing, but my hope is to have like a print run of this game ready before we go to Gen Con, so I can bring like a little stack with me to Gen Con and try and interface with some like publishers there.
Yeah, man.
That's fun.
Should make that
Oh, yeah?
happen, for sure.
it'd be very fun.
We're all mostly going to Gen Con again, listeners, watchers. So
Yes.
come to
Yes.
You've got time. Come to Gen Con this year.
When is that?
It
July
is
31st through August 3rd
to August 3rd. Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Ew.
of Indianapolis.
There's really nothing going on. It's
I swear,
nothing.
I feel
Better
like
than Gary.
Gen Con. I feel like Gen Con triples the population of Indianapolis whenever it happens.
Oh, probably.
Yeah. Indianapolis, I've discovered since Gen Con, is like an event city. Like a lot of
Oh, yeah.
stuff
yeah.
happens and
Yeah.
just like takes over the city and then leaves.
Conventions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
They are a convention
so
city.
interesting that they succeeded in being a place that could draw masses to events. If that's the only thing that they had to draw people,
Well, I think the
that
thing
they're having the
I think,
event.
I think the thing that like makes it competitive is that it is a Rust Belt city that is I mean like they have an NFL team, but it's like and an NBA team. I mean it's a big city, but they have like cheap it's cheap too, and that's the thing.
Mhm.
Is like
Yeah.
ho-
Yeah.
like the hotel prices for Gen Con, which is like the biggest event that happens in the city on an annual basis,
Are also still pretty reasonable.
yeah, like cheaper
Yeah.
than you'd be able to get on a random night in New York City anytime.
Yeah. Oh
yeah. That's cool. That makes sense. You know.
Yeah.
But I will say
Steve,
that I
you want to
laughed
say
the
that?
first time that I went to Indiana because I was noticing driving cross country the different welcome signs where they like show a little like something about like, oh, welcome to, you know, this state, and then they'll have like a tagline or whatever for the state. For Indiana, it just said the crossroads of America. Which is like literally, it fits kind of what we're describing of like, this is the place everyone goes through on the way to other things.
Mhm.
But apparently also they're starting to be better at making people stay there for at least a few days.
Yeah. There was one time I was driving.
At least a log weekend.
I was driving from upstate New York to Kansas City because I was dating a girl who lived in Kansas City, was like going to school in Kansas City, so I was driving to visit her. And I'm driving through Indiana, and when I hit the Indiana-Illinois state line, it was snowing because it was December, and hit the state line, and it was like just a wall. Like it was snowing heavily through all of Indiana, and I got to Illinois, and at the state line, it was just
That's
nothing.
insane. You mean to tell me they got Minecraft biomes in real life?
Like legitimately, that's what it was like.
What the hell?
Have you guys ever driven into a wall of rain?
Yeah.
That only has happened to me in Florida. And it was jarring because I just didn't know it was a phenomenon. Rain has always been so gradual feeling.
Mhm.
Where like if you're going into it, it's not like you see a discrete, like this is a patch of intense rain, whereas everything else around it is nothing.
Yeah.
It's like the
And I
opposite of
remember-
driving under a bridge during heavy rain.
Yeah.
So I was just gonna say, my experience with this, I didn't actually hit the wall of rain because I was driving from New York, visiting my family back home, and on my way back into Connecticut. And so I was driving through the Berkshires, and I drove, and there was like I could see the wall of rain, but I drove under an underpass into the rain. So like my car was dry, went under the underpass, and came out into the rain.
Weird.
Yo,
I don't like it.
I do. I do.
I don't like it.
I think I rolled cool dice for that one. But yeah, I just found it generally amazing because I could see. I was like, first of all, what is that? We were driving down like I think it's Interstate 95, full speed, and it's like bright and clear day, and then I just see grayness, and like it's like overlapping the highway. So we're like going straight towards this thing, and I'm like, we're like, oh, that's pouring rain, and then all of a sudden it was like snap. And we were like in it, you know, and then we were out of it.
Insane.
Justin, you're
Johnny,
muted.
I just want to say the vibes. I love like any kind of like Western / like Eldritch horror, like Western / occult. That's like I
always a good
love
Yeah.
that like genre, and so very excited for that.
And if listeners you like it too, go find our one shot, two shot. I think it's called Into the Bone Zone.
Yes, that was so long ago.
Welcome,
Yeah.
Yeah.
to the Bone Zone.
Welcome to the Bone Zone.
Welcome to the
Yeah.
Bone
Bone
Zone.
Zone.
Yeah. That was a fun one.
Didn't I play like a skeletal monkey or something?
Oh, that was You Awaken in a Strange Place, wasn't it?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That's
played
how
You
we
Awaken in a Strange
generated the
Place.
world that inspired in my mind Dustfire the game, which will one day
Dustfire.
exist, and
One day.
Dustfire the
Not that-
series.
One day. One day it will. It'll
Yeah.
get,
Wouldn't
it'll-
that
it'll
suck?
come.
A dust storm that's just engulfed in the. I guess Mad Max did that. Never mind.
We can
Well-
never do something that's been done. That's a rule.
It's
So
true.
that's
It's
why I'm
the
not going to
rule.
go to bed tonight.
Especially if Mad Max did it.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't sleep
Thank
because billionaires sleep, and I don't want to do what they do.
Hell no.
thank you all for watching us just chat a little bit about a game that Johnny's developing. In 2 weeks, barring Nick being well again, we should be back with Root. So I'm looking forward to that because it's been a long time since Root, and I like that system a lot. And I like Nick as a GM a lot. And I don't like what Danny and Steve are doing right now.
We like you.
All right. Well, I like the two of you as well too. I just don't like what you're doing.
Hey,
What about me?
I can accept
Well,
that.
You're fine, Johnny.
Okay, thank you.
You're on thin fucking ice.
whoa!
Well, everybody, it's been Justin as himself, Danny as Justin, Johnny as also Justin, and Steve as the guy watching Danny, and now Johnny be Justin.
Wow.
We'll see you
Clink, clink.
next time. Bye.
Bye.
Clang, motherfucker.
Clang, motherfuckers.
Clang, clang.